Evelyn heard the sound on her third night in the village where nobody lived anymore. It came from inside the walls. Thump, 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 like a heartbeat, like something alive. She sat up in her narrow bed, blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. The old house creaked and groaned around her. Outside, the wind pushed through dead trees, making them whisper secrets to each other. But this sound was different. This sound came from inside. Thump, 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 thump. Evelyn had come to this forgotten place because she had nowhere else to go. Her husband was gone. Her home was gone. Everyone she loved had left her behind, one way or another. The world felt too loud, too bright, too full of people who didn't understand the heavy stone that sat in her chest where her heart used to be. So she packed one small bag and walked until she found a place that matched how she felt inside. Empty, forgotten, alone. The village had been abandoned for many years. Houses leaned against each other like tired old men. Roofs had fallen in. Windows stared out like empty eyes. Weeds grew tall in the streets. No children played here. No dogsbark. No smoke rose from chimneys. It was perfect. Evelyn chose the least broken house, on the edge of the village. Half of it had collapsed, but the other half still had walls and a roof. She swept out the dirt and dead leaves. She fixed the door so it would close. She made a bed from old blankets she found in a trunk. "This will do," she told herself. "This will do just fine." For 2 nights, she heard only normal sounds. Wind, mice in the walls, owls hunting in the dark. She ate bread and cheese from her bag. She drank water from a stream that ran through the forest nearby. She sat in the doorway and watched the sun go down behind black trees. The silence wrapped around her like a cold blanket. It felt right. It felt like home. But on the 3rd night, the silence broke. Thump, 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 thump. Evelyn stood up slowly. The floorboards creaked under her feet. She held her candle high, and shadows danced across the walls like fingers reaching for her. "Hello," she called out. Her voice sounded small and scared. The thumping stopped. She waited, holding her breath. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. Nothing. "Just old pipes," she whispered. "Just the house settling. Just my imagination." She climbed back into bed. She blew out the candle. She closed her eyes tight. Thump, 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 thump. There was again. Louder now. More urgent. And then she heard something else. A voice. So soft she almost missed it. So quiet it might have been the wind. But it wasn't the wind. Help. Evelyn's eyes flew open. Her heart hammered in her chest. That was a real word. A real voice. A child's voice. "Help me?" She grabbed her candle with shaking hands. She lit it with a match that took 3 tries because her fingers wouldn't stop trembling. The small flame pushed back the darkness just a little. "Where are you?" Evelyn called out. "Help me? Please." The voice was coming from outside now, from beyond her broken door, from somewhere in the dead village. Every part of Evelyn's body told her to stay inside, to hide under her blankets, to pretend she heard nothing. This place was abandoned for a reason. People didn't leave their homes unless something very bad had happened. But that voice, that small, scared, lonely voice, it sounded like how she felt inside. Evelyn opened the door. The night air was cold and smelled like pine needles and old memories. She stepped outside, holding her candle up high. The flame flickered and danced, making shadows jump and twist. "Where are you?" she called again. "Here. I'm here." The voice was pulling her forward, down the broken street, past empty houses with their dark windows watching, past a church with no roof and walls covered in vines, past a well in the center of the village square that was surrounded by warning signs someone had put up long ago. The signs were old and faded, but Evelyn could still read them. "Danger, keep out. Do not approach. Condemned." The voice was coming from the forest beyond the village, from somewhere deep in the trees where the darkness was thick as soup. "Please, help me. It's so cold." Evelyn stopped at the edge of the forest. Smart people didn't go into dark forests at night. Smart people turned around and went back to their safe beds. But Evelyn wasn't feeling smart. She was feeling something else. Something she hadn't felt in a very long time. She was feeling needed. "I'm coming," she said. "Hold on. I'm coming." She stepped into the forest. Branches grabbed at her clothes like skeleton fingers. Roots tried to trip her feet. Her candle barely made enough light to see 3 steps ahead. But she kept walking. She kept following that voice. This way. I'm this way. Deeper into the trees. Deeper into the dark. The village disappeared behind her. There was only forest now. Only shadows and whispers and that small voice pulling her forward. And then she saw it. Another well, hidden in the forest, covered with boards that were half rotted and falling apart. A stone circle around a black hole that went down, down, down into the earth. The voice was coming from inside. "Down here. I'm down here. Please don't leave me." Evelyn knelt at the edge. She held her candle over the opening. The light fell into darkness, but didn't reach the bottom. It was like looking into forever. "How long have you been down there?" she asked. The voice was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, it sounded confused. "I don't remember. A long time. A very long time. Everyone forgot about me." Evelyn's throat felt tight. Her eyes burned with tears she thought had dried up months ago. She knew exactly how that felt. "I won't forget about you," she said. "I promise. I'm going to get you out." She didn't know how yet. She didn't have rope. She didn't have help. She was just one old woman in a dead village in the middle of nowhere, but she had made a promise. And sometimes a promise is the first step toward a miracle. The next morning, Evelyn walked back to the village with mission burning in her heart. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky pink and orange. Birds sang in the trees. Everything looked different in daylight, less scary. But Evelyn knew the well was real. The voice was real. And somewhere down in that dark hole, a child was waiting. She searched through every abandoned house in the village. Most of them were falling apart, full of broken furniture and memories left behind. In one house, she found old curtains she could tear into strips. In another, she discovered a coil of wire that was rusty but strong. In a third house, tucked in a closet, she found exactly what she needed: rope. It was old and dusty, but when she pulled on it hard, it held. It would have to be enough. Evelyn also found a lantern that still worked and some oil to fill it. She filled a bag with supplies: matches, a knife, a blanket, a bottle of water, some bread. Then she walked back into the forest. In daylight, she could see the path more clearly. There were old tracks here, like people used to walk this way a long time ago. The trees seemed less frightening now, more sad than scary. The forest felt like it was mourning something. When she reached the well, she tied one end of the rope around the strongest tree she could find. She tied the other end around her waist. Her hands shook as she made the knots. She wasn't a young woman anymore. Her bones ached. Her muscles were tired. But she had made a promise. "I'm coming down," she called into the well. "Are you still there?" Silence. Her heart sank. Had it all been a dream? Had the voice been just her imagination, her loneliness playing tricks? Then, softly, "You came back?" The voice sounded surprised, like nobody had ever come back before. "Of course I came back," Evelyn said. "I told you I would." She lit the lantern and hooked it onto her belt. Then she sat on the edge of the well, legs dangling into the darkness. This was the scary part. This was where she could change her mind, walk away, go back to her quiet, safe, empty life. But that voice, that child, Evelyn grabbed the rope tight and lowered herself over the edge. Down she went, hand over hand, feet pressing against the wet stone walls. The rope bit into her waist. Her arms burned. The circle of daylight above her got smaller and smaller. The lantern swung and cast wild shadows. Water dripped down the walls. The air got colder. She could hear her own breathing, loud in the narrow space. "I'm coming," she called. "Keep talking so I can find you. I'm here, at the bottom. I can see your light. Down, down, down." Evelyn's whole body ached. Just when she thought her arms would give out, her feet touched something solid. The bottom. She stood on shaky legs and held up her lantern. And there he was, a boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, thin as a stick, covered in dirt. His clothes were torn and strange, old-fashioned, like from a different time. His eyes were huge in his small face, reflecting the lantern light, like a cat's eyes. But what made Evelyn's breath catch was the burn mark on his neck. A scar, pink and twisted, that went up one side of his face. "Hello," she whispered. The boy didn't say anything. He just stared at her like she was a ghost, like she wasn't real. "My name is Evelyn. I'm here to take you home." Home. The word came out broken, like he'd forgotten what it meant. Yes, home. Up there, out of this hole. She reached out her hand. "Can you hold on to me?" The boy looked at her hand for a long time. Then, slowly, he reached out and took it. His fingers were ice cold. Getting back up was much harder than coming down. Evelyn had to climb with one arm while holding the boy with the other. He was light, too light, like he was made of sticks and air. But halfway up, her strength gave out. "I can't," she gasped. "I am sorry. I can't make it." "Yes, you can." The boy's voice was stronger now. "You have to. You promised." Something in those words gave Evelyn power she didn't know she had. She thought of her husband, who she promised to love forever. She thought of all the broken promises in her life, all the things left undone. Not this time. She climbed, in being, hand over hand. Her muscles screamed. Her lungs burned. But she climbed. When her hand finally gripped the edge of the well and pulled them both out into the sunlight, she collapsed on the ground. The boy fell beside her. They both lay there, breathing hard, staring up at the blue sky through the tree branches. "Thank you," the boy whispered. Evelyn turned her head to look at him. In the daylight, she could see him better. His burn scar, his two old eyes, his clothes that looked like they were from 50 years ago. "What's your name?" she asked. "Thomas." "How did you get down there, Thomas?" His face went dark. There was fire, so much fire. Everyone was screaming. "I ran. I fell. And then, I don't remember. It's all mixed up." "What fire? When?" But Thomas had gone quiet, his eyes distant, seeing something she couldn't see. That evening, Evelyn took Thomas back to her house. She gave him water and food, though he barely ate. She wrapped him in blankets, though he didn't seem to feel the cold. She asked him questions, but his answers didn't make sense. As night fell, she decided to walk to the nearest town, 10 miles away. She needed answers. She needed to understand what had happened here. The town was small but alive. People looked at her strangely when she asked about the abandoned village. An old woman in a shop finally spoke up. "You mean Hollow Creek? Nobody goes there anymore." "Why not?" The old woman's face went pale. "Because of what happened. The fire, the orphanage, all those poor children." Evelyn's blood ran cold. When, 60 years ago, burned to the ground one night. They say the woman who ran it locked the doors so the children couldn't escape. Only a few got out. The rest... She shook her head. The whole village left after that. Too many ghosts. Too much sadness. The children who escaped. Do you know their names? Most of them died later. From the burns. From the smoke. But there was one boy who went missing. Thomas, I think his name was. They never found him. Everyone thought he died in the forest. Evelyn walked back to Hollow Creek in the dark, her mind spinning. 60 years. The boy in her house should be an old man now, but he looked 7 years old, and his voice had called to her from a well he'd been trapped in for longer than she'd been alive. When she got back, Thomas was sitting by the window, looking out at the forest. "Thomas," she said gently, "I know what happened. I know about the fire." He turned to look at her. Tears ran down his face. "I couldn't save them. I tried. I heard them calling. All of them. In the well. Still calling." And then Evelyn understood. Thomas wasn't the only one. The well wasn't just his prison. It was theirs. All of them. All the children who had died in the fire. Their voices trapped underground. Waiting for someone to hear them. Waiting for someone to set them free. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She sat in her chair by the window, watching Thomas sleep on her old couch. He looked so peaceful now, curled up under the blanket. But she knew the truth. He wasn't really here. Not completely. Part of him was still in that well with the others. All those children. Calling. Waiting. Forgotten. As the moon rose high, Evelyn heard it again. The voices. But this time, they weren't just one voice. They were many. A chorus of whispers coming from the forest. Help us. Please. We're so cold. We want to go home. Thomas sat up suddenly, his eyes wide. You hear them too? Evelyn nodded. What do they need, Thomas? How do I help them? Thomas stood and walked to the door. They need to be remembered. They need someone to care. The well became our grave because nobody came back for us. Nobody spoke our names. Nobody said goodbye. Tell me their names, Evelyn said. So Thomas did. One by one, he told her about the children who had died in the fire. Sarah, who loved to sing. Michael, who was scared of the dark. Little Emma, who was only 4. Jonathan, Peter, Grace, Anna, Samuel. 12 children in all, not counting Thomas. As he spoke, Evelyn wrote each name down in a notebook she'd found. She wrote everything Thomas remembered about them, their favorite games, their dreams, the songs they sang. When dawn came, Evelyn knew what she had to do. She and Thomas walked to the well in the forest. In the daylight, it looked smaller, less frightening. Just an old hole in the ground covered with rotting boards. But it was so much more than that. Evelyn knelt by the well and spoke clearly. Sarah, Michael, Emma, Jonathan, Peter, Grace, Anna, Samuel, and all the others whose names were lost. I hear you. I remember you. You are not forgotten. The forest went completely silent. Even the birds stopped singing. It was like the whole world was holding its breath. Then, from deep in the well, came a sound, soft at first, then growing louder. It was singing. Children's voices, sweet and clear, singing a lullaby. Thomas took Evelyn's hand. His was warm now, not cold anymore. They're saying thank you, he whispered. They can leave now, because someone finally came back for them. Over the next few weeks, something amazing happened in Hollow Creek. Word spread to the nearby town about what Evelyn was doing. At first, people thought she was crazy. An old woman living in a haunted village, talking to ghosts. But then, one by one, they started to come. An old man who had been a little boy when the orphanage burned down. He brought flowers and placed them by the well. My sister died in that fire, he said quietly. I never got to say goodbye. A woman who had been a teacher at the orphanage came. She wept as she spoke the names of her students, asking them to forgive her for not saving them. More people arrived. Some brought stones to repair the well. Others brought small toys and gifts to leave as offerings. Someone carved a wooden sign that said, In memory of the children of Hollow Creek, forever loved, never forgotten. Slowly, the village began to change. Families moved back to fix up the old houses. Gardens were planted. The church roof was repaired. Children played in the street again, and their laughter chased away the sadness that had lived there for so long. The well became something beautiful. People planted flowers all around it. They hung wind chimes that sang in the breeze. On special days, the whole village would gather there to light candles and remember. And Thomas? He changed too. Each day, he became more solid, more real. Color returned to his cheeks. His clothes slowly transformed into modern ones. He started eating real food and sleeping through the night without nightmares. One morning, Evelyn woke to find him in the kitchen trying to make breakfast. He'd burned the toast and spilled the milk, but he was smiling. Good morning, Mama, he said. Evelyn's heart stopped. What did you call me? Thomas looked at her with clear, bright eyes. Mama, that's what you are now. You brought me home. You gave me a life. You're my mama. Tears ran down Evelyn's face. Happy tears. The first happy tears she'd cried in years. She had come to this village to die, to hide from the world in her grief, to be alone in her sadness. But instead, she had found a reason to live. She had found a son. She had found a home. She had found a whole community that needed healing just like she did. The village of Hollow Creek was no longer a place of ghosts and sorrow. It was a place of second chances, of hope growing from ashes, of voices that were finally heard. Every evening, Evelyn and Thomas would walk to the well together. They would sit on the stone edge and watch the sunset paint the sky orange and purple. Sometimes, if they were very quiet, they could still hear singing. Not sad anymore, not crying for help, just children singing lullabies. Happy, free, at peace. 1 year after Evelyn first arrived, the village held a festival. There was music and dancing and food. Children ran through the streets with ribbons and kites. Flowers bloomed everywhere, wild and bright. An old woman came up to Evelyn. It was a shopkeeper from the town who had first told her about the fire. "Look what you did," the woman said, her eyes shining. "You brought life back to this place. You healed something we all thought was broken forever." Evelyn shook her head. "I didn't do it alone. Thomas showed me the way. The children showed me. Sometimes the smallest voice can lead you to the biggest miracle." That night, as the stars came out, Evelyn tucked Thomas into bed. He was growing taller now, becoming more like a real 9-year-old boy. He had friends. He went to school. He laughed and played, and sometimes got in trouble for tracking mud into the house. He was alive. Really, truly alive. "Mama," he said sleepily, "do you think the other children are happy now?" "Yes, sweetheart. I think they're very happy. Because of you." Because someone finally listened. Evelyn corrected gently. Because someone cared enough to hear their voices and remember their names. That's all any of us really want. To be heard, to be remembered, to matter. Thomas closed his eyes. "I'm glad you heard me." "So am I, my darling. So am I." Evelyn sat by his bed until he fell asleep, his breathing soft and even. She thought about the night she'd first heard that heartbeat in the walls. The voice calling from the darkness. The choice she'd made to step into forest instead of hiding in fear. One small choice. One act of courage. One promise kept. And from that tiny seed, a whole garden of miracles had grown. The sound that no human forgets is not a scream or a cry of terror. It's something much quieter, much more powerful. It's the sound of a child's voice saying, "Please don't forget me." And it's the sound of someone answering, "I won't. I promise. You matter. You are loved." That sound changes everything. That sound heals the world. As Evelyn finally went to her own bed, she heard one last whisper on the wind. All the children, together, singing one final song. A song of gratitude. A song of peace. A song that said, "We're home now. Thank you for bringing us home." And Evelyn smiled in the darkness, her heart full, her purpose found, her life complete. She had come to a forgotten village to fade away in silence. Instead, she had learned that the most important thing we can do is listen to the whispers, the quiet voices that need to be heard, the forgotten souls who need to be remembered. Because sometimes saving someone else is the only way to save yourself. And sometimes the greatest miracles sound like the smallest voice saying, "Please, help me." If this story touched your heart, please share, and subscribe for more stories about hope, healing, and the miracles that happen when we choose compassion over fear. Remember, your voice matters. Your story matters. And somewhere, someone needs to hear that they matter too. Thank you for listening.